Happy July 2nd. We've entered now the second month of the summer. My name is Christopher Saunders, and this is the Connecticut Sports Talent Show. This guest coming on today from Ledyard, he's the new head coach of the Ledyard football program. His name, Michael Serricchio. Michael, it's a pleasure to be able to have you on.
Thanks, Chris, man. I'm jacked up to be here.
First off, congrats on being in Connecticut. How do you like it so far?
It's tremendous. I mean, I grew up here. I grew up in the 203, and so being in the 860, it's definitely different. I was in the moving truck the other day, just like seeking through the radio channel because I don't really know what they got up here, and I stumbled upon some Boston sports radio, which I'm not super in on. I was a big New York sports radio guy down in Stanford, but we'll see what those guys have to offer. And I've seen some lowlights from them, unfortunately, but I'm sure I could find a station that has what I need. But it's been interesting so far.
Well, just try to go on AM and just do 660. That's the fan. Just do that.
Oh, perfect. There you go.
Except just don't listen at like 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock.
Who's that?
It's Maggie and I forgot the other guy's name, but I'm sorry, I can't listen to it.
I was a big Michael K show guy on the ESPN radio down in Stanford, New York area.
He has a show. He's from 12 to I think 6 or 12 to 7. No, 3 to 7. Sorry.
Yeah, Michael. Yeah, exactly. 3 to 7. So those are my guys. I could throw on their podcast because that's what they do. But we'll see. I'll find my groove.
I think it's one of those things that just trying to get acclimated to Connecticut, trying to just get back to what was the norms during your previous where you were, and then now just trying to get things back to maybe where they were.
Yeah, and that's just an exciting new chapter in the book. Without challenge there is no change, and without change you don't grow up. And so we're jacked up to be here and ready to go.
You've dealt with some changes over the last few years. You were at Kings, now you're at Ledyard. Before we get into your time with those programs, just kind of take me into your background as a both football player at Springfield, but also to kind of your journey as a human being through the years.
Cool. Yeah, so like you said, I played at King's School in Stanford under Coach Gowan. Shout out to Coach Dan Gowan, one of the best doing it. And so when I was there, I was lucky enough to play with two guys by the name of Silas Redd and Kevin Pierre-Louis. In my opinion, probably the two best players in Connecticut State history. A lot of people argue that our level of competition wasn't up to snub, which may or may not be true. It wasn't the FCAC, but or the ACC or anybody. It was a small private school conference. But those guys were unbelievable. They both went on to FBS programs. Silas went to Penn State. Kevin went to BC. Kevin is still in the league right now. He just signed with the Redskins, and Silas had a year in the league as well. And so we had a tremendous amount of success, obviously. So it was an unforgettable experience, especially because the program, wasn't known for much, before my sophomore year, their junior year, but since then, Coach has won a couple league titles. When I was coaching there, we won 2 NEPSAC titles, which was the first since 90, 95 or something like that. So that was super fun, especially because, as a player, we lost both times we went to the New England Championship. So getting to win those was awesome. So I had a ton of fun in high school, playing with those guys. It was truly unforgettable. Always knew I wanted to play in college as well. Coach Gowan was a Springfield graduate, and he kind of knew, based on, what I like to do, which was lifting weights and playing football, that, Springfield would be a good spot for me, especially because at the time, in high school, I wanted to be a strength coach because, I love lifting weights. My dad was a personal trainer and a strength coach for his whole life pretty much. So I grew up around it. And then I got to Springfield and it was awesome. And I got moved to offensive line my first day after I ran my 40, which was a little bit sad, but it ended up being the best thing, that happened to me in my career. I wish I would have did it sooner. But, my sophomore year ended and that was like obviously the 50% mark. And I was like, man, football is about to be over. and I know I'm about to do the strength coach thing, but not all strength coaches, work with football right out of the gate. And if I'm a strength coach at a school and I'm not coaching football, that's going to be pretty disparaging. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that. And so it occurred to me that I was going to get into coaching. And Springfield has a illustrious GA program, one of the best GA programs in the country. If you look at where the Springfield GAs end up. And so I said, I'm definitely going to come back here in GA, but what Springfield wants you to do is they want you to go away for at least a year to kind of see, how other programs are run, learn some other schematic stuff, some culture stuff, and then come back to Springfield with what you learned, and go from there. And so I went back home, and I was a personal trainer for a couple months, but I immediately started coaching at King with Coach Gowan, which was awesome. And then a PE job, or an internship rather, opened up at King. And basically I was serving in the capacity of a full-time teacher, teaching classes, elementary school, coaching middle school sports, coaching high school sports. And so that was awesome. I did that for 2 years. And then I was a paraprofessional at Glenville School, where I met my fiance for a year, still coaching at King. But during that time, Coach Serricchio had taken over Springfield from Coach DeLong, who I played for, who was there for 30 plus years. I think he retired as the 5th winningest head coach in Division III history. I think he had 202 wins when he retired, which is pretty amazing. And so as soon as Coach C got that job, I was like, man, I got to get back and get on that staff, because Coach C is, one of my biggest mentors in my life, and somebody who I hope to emulate, on and off the field, as a coach and as a person. And so jumped at the opportunity. And those 2 years of Springfield, man, they were truly unbelievable. It's kind of hard to explain in a conversation, because you kind of have to be there to really understand how special it is. You're one of 8 GAs, in the Division III program. And usually when people, in football hear the word, GA, you think of, an entry-level guy just doing data entry and film breakdown and stuff like that. But at Springfield, you coach a position, you're responsible for an entire position group, as well as doing all the administrative, quote unquote, classic GA things. And so it's very demanding. It's very tough, because you're also a full-time student. And so your life's kind of like a whirlwind for 2 years. And, when you're first in it, you don't think it's going to end. And then all of a sudden you blink and you just coach your last game at Springfield. And it's super emotional, because, again, you don't think it's going to end. It's so much fun. And the kids at Springfield are an absolute dream to coach. Those kids, live, eat, breathe football. They're all high character kids, because Springfield recruits character first. And so, coaching those kids is a blast. They'll run through a wall for you. And again, just going through that grind with 7 other guys who are doing the exact same thing as you. You live with them, you go to the office with them. Again, it's a super unique experience, and it's one that I'll remember for the rest of my life. And it's directly responsible for, where I am now. I wouldn't have been able to get this job at Ledyard if it wasn't for my time at Springfield, and, learning as much as I did. And so, all credit goes to Coach Serricchio and Coach DeLong and the football program at Springfield, because, me, among many other people, would not be where we are in coaching, if we hadn't GA at Springfield. So just can't say enough good things about that football program.
Would you
say
I'm
biased because I'm an alum, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was about to say, I think you being an alum kind of makes you a tad biased, but hey, there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
Nothing wrong with that. Would you say that going through the turbulations and kind of allowing yourself to kind of get maturated, kind of like almost if you're preparing a steak for the 4th of July, you want to marinate it the day before so it tastes better on the 4th. Do you feel like you kind of went through that same thing as a coach, where you went through the process properly as a coach and not just thrown into it, in day one?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, coaching high school is obviously different than college, but I think, when you're getting your feet wet, coaching high school first is great because of a couple different things. Being an assistant in high school, you deal with a lot of different personalities. Not everybody lives, eats, and breathes football like they do in college. And so, doing that before I got to Springfield was huge. And then, being at Springfield, and again, being a full-time student, being a full-time coach, recruiting full-time, it forces you to learn time management. And if you can't manage your time well, you're not going to succeed as a GA. So immediately you have to be able to manage your time. And I think, as a head coach, it's crucial because there's only so much time in a given week to prepare for an opponent. And so learning how to be organized, how to manage your time, how to be efficient with your time, because as Coach C always says, there's a difference between being busy and being efficient. Just being in the office all hours of the night isn't necessarily good unless you're actually being productive and getting stuff done. Like if you can get your stuff done in 4 hours, why be there all day for 8 hours? You know what I mean? But as a GA, you're usually there for a while anyway because you have so much to do. But yeah, I think the GA experience was vital, and I think it's going to prove to be vital as I go through, my career as a head coach. And again, I really think the time management piece and the efficiency piece is really what's going to, help me through, as a young head coach.
And while you're going through all this success as far as at Springfield and then Kings and so forth, you have a school in Ledyard that was kind of going through a little bit of change and consistent change. They had 4 coaches in the last 5 seasons, and the AD, Jim Bonacore, was saying, okay, I need to get somebody in here that can be, be stable, be that guy that, okay, if I hire him, he's going to be here for years to come. And I don't have to worry about looking for a coach the next time I have breakfast. So
Mm-hmm.
during the coaching process, or I shouldn't say during the coaching process, but during the interview process, just kind of take me into that with the AD from Ledyard.
Yeah, and I hate to sound like a Springfield homer, but I'm going to.
Like you haven't already?
Yeah, I guess that ship has sailed. But when I had the opportunity to interview, I was very well prepared. The second year GAs do mock interviews multiple times a year. You see, the second year GAs as first year GAs go through it, so you sit in on those. So that there's a ton of interview experience, not including the GA interview, to get the job initially. And so, at Springfield they preach having a packet or a booklet that you can give out to the interview committee, as far as your philosophy, what you believe in, some schematic stuff in there, just pretty much everything that you believe as a whatever position you're applying for in paper form, in hard copy. So as soon as I knew I had an interview scheduled, I got to work on that packet, and I tried to cover literally everything. No stone was left unturned. I tried to be as detailed as possible, and so I think that helped me out. I think that if you talk to the Springfield staff about how my GA interview was, they'd be shocked that my interviews at Ledyard went well because my interviews at Springfield did not go so hot. And so again, just having more interview experience during my time there and sitting in on interviews really helped me out. But I think at the end of the day, it's all about confidence and conviction. And if you believe in what you're saying and your vision aligns with the vision of the school, then it was meant to be. But can't say enough good things about Coach Bonacore. He's a Springfield guy himself, and so we have the same vision as far as what we want from the program. And I think all the things that I said and I'm going to do were kind of on his checklist, so to speak. But again, he was very thorough with his interview process. He asked great questions. There were 3 rounds of interviews. I'm sorry. So it was a long process, and it was definitely stressful because you don't know how you did. You only have your opinion, and so it was stressful, and I was kind of sweating it out for a little bit. But then obviously when I got the call, it was one of the proudest moments of my life. I couldn't tell you how happy I was, and still am. It's a little bit surreal that I'm in this position, but it's one that I've always wanted and always have aspired, for. And so I knew coaching college, wasn't for me as far as long-term goes, for multiple different reasons. And so I always knew I wanted to be a high school guy. And so I think that really, shined through as well, because a lot of college guys, stay in college. And so, I really had no intention of coaching in college. And I think that was obvious and evident. I got my PE degree at Springfield when I was there. And so I'm passionate about teaching as well. And I'm fired up to have the opportunity to do that eventually as well. But again, Coach Bonacore is very detailed, very thorough. he knows exactly what he wants, from the program and the athletic department, as a whole. And so, I suppose I matched up and aligned with his vision.
Now he's a Springfield guy. Am I
Yeah,
wrong?
he is.
Now, the reason why I, want to make that comparison is because kind of like what we deal with as far as for interviews, even non-sports, if you're just going for a normal job, a lot of times it's the people that you're comfortable with. If you know people, a lot of people hire like their friends or they hire people friend of a friend because they want that comfortability. And I wonder, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, if maybe the connection with Springfield and the fact that he knows how the program at Springfield is ran. And like you mentioned, as far as going through the process, he kind of knew in the back of his mind, maybe you had a little bit of an edge. And like everything as far as interviews, people do. But the fact that he knew about what goes on at Springfield allowed him to kind of feel more comfortable as far as going through the process during the interviews with you.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I think, not much has changed as far as, how the program is run at Springfield since he's been there. The core values in the the morals and the character of the program is the same. And so, he knew what he was going to get from a Springfield GA. If you make it your 2 years and you get the stamp of approval from the coaching staff at Springfield, you know what you're going to get. And, he was a GA himself. And so he knows what I went through, and he knows, how arduous it is, but also how much you learn during your time there. And so, we had a very similar path, and I think he knew what he was getting, based on, how I interviewed and the recommendations from the staff at Springfield. But yeah, definitely knowing what Springfield's all about, and how it's called the Cradle of Coaches for a reason. And there's a ton of Springfield alums in coaching from high school all the way up to the NFL. And so, we joke when we say that, Springfield is the Harvard Law of PE. But it's kind of true. If you look at the alumni base and, where Springfield guys are at, the proof is in the pudding. So I definitely think he knew what he was going to get, from a GA, having been one himself.
And he mentioned he mentioned in the paper quite a few times about the energy that you have, the enthusiasm. He said, and I quote, Mike really put himself at the forefront from the get-go, and he was referring to the interview process. Was there anything in particular that you did to kind of put yourself, like he mentioned, in the forefront?
I mean, the only thing I can really think of is, I love football, obviously. But I think I love it for different reasons. The chess game is awesome. It's, I love scheming people up. It's a ton of fun getting on the board and, doing all the X's and O's. But I really think I love football because of what it can do for young people. And I know the effect that it had on me. And I know for a fact that I would not be who I am without football. And I know for a fact that I wouldn't be who I am without the coaches that I had. And, I think in today's society, people of high character are needed more than ever. And I think that football is a microcosm of life, and how you, conduct yourself on the football field is how you conduct yourself in life. And I don't think you can go from, a team first, we over me, loyal, dedicated, committed guy or gal on the field, and then just be a scumbag off the field. I don't think that's how it works. I don't think it's not vice versa. So I think that, football is incredibly, incredibly powerful. And if you look at a football program and you have, let's say, 20 seniors per year, just, arbitrary number that you're putting out, into the world after they graduate, you multiply that by, let's say, 30 years, a long tenured head coach, that's a ton of people that can make the world a better place. And those people are going to have impact on others. And so it just builds and builds and builds, and it's kind of a snowball effect. And so I think with people who aren't, keyed in on football and in sports in general, but I think football especially, is it creates better people if the program is run the right way. And so, I've seen what it can do for people who needed football. And I know that there's people similar to me who wouldn't be where they are without football. And I think it can save lives in a certain way, not medically speaking, but I think it can turn a lot of people's lives around. I think the role of a head coach, especially in high school, is definitely a father figure type of role, and you have so much influence as a role model and a mentor, and that's always what I wanted to be. I aspire to be an elite mentor, and I want to be able to say, or to hear rather, the graduates of Ledyard 10 years down the road, when they're CEOs or leaders in their field or leaders in the community, that playing for Ledyard was an invaluable experience for me. Like, without Coach Serricchio and his staff, I would not be where I am today. And I think that truly is why football matters, more than ever. And we could win 5 or 10 state titles, but if I'm not hearing that, I think it's empty. And I'd rather hear that a million times than win a million state titles. And so I think that in the process of interviewing, I conveyed what I think about football as a character builder and as a molder of people, rather than, hey, I'm the smartest guy in the room, I'm going to out scheme everybody, and we're going to run this and this. And the scheme and the X's and O's were very secondary to me, and I think that could be a reason why I ended up getting the job.
Now, you mentioned the scheming aspect, and I'm glad that you said that, because being a recent graduate, you kind of have been now, because I graduated in 2015 as well. And I started to notice, because my college did not have football, but I was, I went to school in New Haven. So I kept track of like Southern and Yale and kind of the other colleges, Quinnipiac, just schools that were just around, just because of the, not just the football programs, but just programs in general. And I think that because the way sports are starting to morph, you have now, with it being 5+ years, a new kind of generation, a new crop of coaches who see football maybe different than coaches who did in the 2000s and the 90s and so forth. But you still have coaches like that who are coaching. Now, my question to you is, do you feel like you have an edge because you're a recent graduate, now the new age of football, so you're more morphed to change and go schematically both on the offensive side and defensive side?
That's an interesting question. I think that my youth is a double-edged sword. And I think that, 5 years of experience in the grand scheme isn't a whole lot. And I still have so much to learn. But I also think, on the other side of the coin, I'm willing to learn, and I want to learn so badly. And I want to, soak up everything football knowledge that there is. And I know that I have, so far to go. And so, the football, I think, I don't want to come off the wrong way. I don't think football is all that complicated. And I truly believe that regardless of what scheme you're running, if you run, block, and tackle better than the other team, and you take care of the football and don't turn it over, you're going to have a really good shot to win. And so it's also funny you asked that, because, I'm a triple option guy, and we're going to be running triple option, and that's definitely not a modern offense. However, we are going to emphasize, running, blocking, and tackling, especially tackling. There's a right and wrong way to teach it. And, the way the game is going, you have to double down on safety. And so we're going to teach tackling the right way and the safest way. But, especially at the high school level, I truly believe you can run any scheme that you want. You can run air raid, wing tee, spread, whatever option, whatever you want to run. If your players believe in what you're running, and they understand what to do, and they know what to do, and they do it really fast and at a high level of intensity, you're going to be okay. And I truly believe if you run, block, and tackle better than the team you're playing, and you don't turn it over, you're going to really put yourself in a good position to win. And I think football has always been that way. I think that, the game certainly has evolved, with the spread offense and defenses to match it. But at the end of the day, you got 11 guys, and you're trying to put the ball in the end zone. And so I really think that we're gonna double down on the basics and be brilliant at the basics, as we say, and we're gonna run, block, and tackle every day, and try and do it better than the other team, because we might be faster, we might not be faster, we might be bigger, we might not be bigger. We can't really count on being physically superior every week. I don't think any team really can. Some probably can, but we're going to have to really double down on the basics and win that way.
It's music to my ears hearing that the triple option, because I'm a big fan of the triple option. Now,
Outstanding.
I never played football, probably because, again, I have a hard time being able to understand the schematics if I was playing. Broadcasting, it's completely different. But
Mhm.
going back to the triple option, I'm a big fan of it because A, if you can run it right, it's unstoppable. And two, I think, and maybe it's because I like journeys, I like kind of the work leading up to what would be the finished product. Being able to show the young men that you'll have in the program kind of how the triple option is run and just going through that process kind of makes it even more enjoyable.
Yeah, I love the option for a couple of reasons. One being, and then the first one being, it's so unlike the spread offense that you really have to overhaul your defense for a week, and you have really 3 or 4 days to prepare for an offense that is not very common. And so what you have to do against an option team is so much different than what you have to do against a spread team. It really puts defensive coaches in a pickle. Number two, it's very much north and south. There is no zone blocking. It's all downhill in your face. Here we come. Uh, it's linemen are in the 3-point stance with 90% of their weight on their hands, and they're sprinting off the football, trying to get as much movement at the point of attack as possible. And we're going to coach our ball carriers to never run out of bounds unless you're in a 2-minute situation. And so our ball carriers are gonna put their shoulder down and land on their nose. Um, I think it's a tremendous way to possess the football if you coach it right and you have ball security, because ball security is one of the drawbacks if you're not careful because of the mesh and because of the pitches and things like that. But you can just hold the ball and get 4 or 5 yards a clip and just bleed that clock out and wear a defense out. But most of all, I like it because of what it provides you culturally. I think it promotes unselfishness because you got 4 different people at a minimum that are going to get carries. And 1 week the fullback might carry you, 1 week the quarterback might carry you, 1 week it might be your halfbacks, 1 week it might be your pass game. So there really is no superstar per se. On paper, obviously, different teams, you might have an outstanding quarterback, you might have an outstanding fullback, whatever. But even still, you're going to have a lot of different, hands on the football, and so you can't have any selfishness. You can't have any. There's no room for whining again the ball, this, that, and the other thing. And again, the physicality of our offense, I think, is going to hopefully carry over to our defense and special teams as well. I think every team should want their identity to be fast and physical. And when you're running an offense where you're sprinting as fast as you can into the opponent, I think that promotes a culture of physicality in playing fast. And so I played in the offense, and I can tell you that when it's rolling and the team is having a hard time stopping it, it is the best feeling in the world. Defensive guys are yelling at each other because they don't know who has what and what assignment is where. Defensive linemen get tired very quickly once you get into the 10, 11, 12 play drives. I can go on and on about why I love the option, but we are certainly going to be an option team. And it's funny because I didn't realize prior to getting the job that our Thanksgiving Day rival is Fitch, and they also run the option. And so fans on both sides that day will be screaming to throw the ball more, I'm sure. And I can't wait to hear that because I heard it, at Springfield all the time. It's a tale as old as time. You can rush for 600 yards, and fans will come up to it and tell you need to throw the ball more. So I am fully prepared to answer those questions, if they are presented, which I'm sure they will be. But I'm certainly all in on the option.
Well, the option's one of those things where I think, especially because with you being a new head coach, I think being able to sell it to the kids, I think will be one battle, and another is making sure that it shows the progress as that it does during the season. Because being able to broadcast in the NVL, I saw the option first and foremost from Jude Kelly from St. Paul, and he was able to sell it very early to the kids, and they bought in, and it worked extraordinary. When they had the talent, that's the biggest thing. When you have when you have the hogs on the line and you have the athletes to be able to know where to go, when to go in that proper spot. I've always compared the option to an orchestra. When everything is going well and everybody's playing the music, playing whatever instrument that they are, it sounds great. But when you have one guy go left and one's supposed to go right, that's when it messes up that kinetic chain.
That is a terrific analogy. I like that a lot, but yeah, it's true. But I also think, you can run option with pretty much any personnel. Like, you don't need the lineman to be huge because, again, we're going to be, sprinting off the line of scrimmage, and I'm counting on us being, lower than the defensive line. And if you can't block defensive linemen, the best part about the option is you run around them and you read them. And so if there's an all-state 3 technique that we're playing against, we're probably going to run a lot of midline. And if there's an all-state defensive end, we're probably going to run wide dive and inside veer. And so the old saying goes, if you can't block them, read them. But that's another advantage of the offense. Like, if your best player is up front, we're just not going to block him. We're going to force him to think on his feet and read him up.
Mike, it's great to be able to have you on, and we've just about run out of time, but hopefully you enjoyed being on the show, and I could have you on again either before the season, during, or after the season, because I could spend an entire day just talking about the triple option.
Yeah, no, I love this, man. This is awesome. I'll jump on whenever you want me to. I thank you so much. Whenever we get an opportunity to promote our program, I'm going to jump at it. And so, whatever you want or whatever you need, just let me know, and we'll figure this thing out and do it again sometime.
That'll wrap things up here in the Connecticut Sports Talent Show. So until next time, stay safe, and remember, Connecticut stands for Connecticut Talent, and I'm on a journey to find them all. Have a safe and happy day, everyone.